welcome to Bordeaux's Boardroom, and welcome Michael. Michael Trendota is my guest today. We're going to be talking about economics, how it relates to condominiums, and who knows what other avenue of thought we'll get into.
We might wander.
I suspect we will. So before we go forward anymore with that, did you want to introduce yourself and explain, why we should care what you have to say about any of this?
Let me give you a bit of a background. So I came to Ontario in 2012 now, 2013. So I came from Manitoba, where I grew up. I moved here to go to Queen's. I did grad school at Queen's. I did my MBA. And after that, I went straight into the property management business, as one does. So I spent 6-7 years in rental. And then my business partner and I decided to open up a condo management company. So we were called Alwington. We grew. We had probably about 6 or 7 acquisitions over the course of 5 or 6 years. And then we hit a time in our partnership agreement where we negotiated a parting, and I actually sold my part of the firm over to my partner. And as soon as I was out, I got a call from Queen's, and they said, "Hey, listen, Michael, we hear you're free. Would you like to come teach?" So I picked up a bunch of real estate development and real estate management courses at Queen's, where I've been for a few years now. And most recently, I came on board with a Toronto-based condo management company called GPM Property Management. I've been there for about a year now, and I'm our director of business improvement and community improvement. So anything that makes the business better.
Yeah, well, they're lucky to have someone as thoughtful and well educated as you, yeah. So that's quite a story arc, um, and I have not had too many universities call me to ask me if I want to teach somewhere. Put that out there. I won't go on too much about myself, especially since it's my podcast. It would probably be in pretty poor taste. I will say, just for the given the subject at hand, the economics subject, I too have an MBA, which itself had several economics courses in it. It wasn't, an MBA has a lot of stuff in it, leadership and things like this. But it's been a hobby horse of mine. It's been a interest of mine for a very long time, since I was a teenager, and I have taken other gone out of my way sort of to take other academic courses in it. I have a business economics certificate from Cornell that I had so much fun doing that. And it's not an economics degree, but that was my Saturday night for several. Yeah, I love it. And one of my favorite courses was for my master's of law. I took it at GMU, at George Mason.
Okay.
And that is like an economics powerhouse. And they flat out told me, we don't let anybody come out of a law degree without understanding economics, because we just don't want you to damage society.
Right.
So
how blatantly honest.
yeah, exactly. Right. So it's like the what is it, Better Call Saul, the monkey with the machine gun type of thing. They want you to apply this. So and I thought, you know what, that's actually rather brilliant, because any legislation, anything that you do, anything you do in life really that has to do with a market or society broadly is going to involve economics.
Exactly.
Right. And so I think that is really what we're going to talk about, a bunch of different topics today, but that, I think, is the overall thread that's going to bind all of them together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So you brought up a great one I think we should start with, which is the state of the condo market. It seems like a really natural place to start. So did you want to give us an overview of it and what developers are doing and what we're seeing?
I think in a couple words, the market is not good. It's not good out there right now. And part of that is because we're seeing an oversupply of units on the market, units that have not sold. And it's not all units that haven't sold. It's particularly small downtown units, or the very, very urban, the very downtown units that were initially built for investors. Those are the ones that have been sitting in the market and are hard to sell because, honestly, they're hard to live in. So if we want to kind of go back a bit in terms of why they were built, how many were built, all that kind of thing, the underlying logic here was that developers are building an apartment building. And it can either be a rental apartment building or it can be a condominium apartment building.
Hmm.
The built form is largely the same. It's more of the legal form. Do you want to keep one owner and rent the whole thing out? Or do you want to split it up into a whole bunch of units and sell those off? Well, for a developer, they have their income and they have expenses, right? They have how much they're going to sell the building for and how much it's going to cost them to build it. When you have these two options in front of you, you look at them in terms of how safe are your cash flows? What are my risks? When you build it as an apartment rental, you have to build the whole building, then you have to rent it out, and then a couple years down the road, after it's been stabilized, after it has a good steady occupancy, then you sell it. So from the time that you buy the land or you option the land until the time you sell it might be 10 years.
Hmm.
So you don't have your certainty of exit value for about 10 years or 7 years or whatever it is. And that's a very risky thing to have. But when you flip that over to that same developer thinking about the condo world, you sell your units before you build the building. So you have actually moved forward your sales to your certainty of your sales value by what, 8 years, by 7 years, by something like that. So it's very easy for a developer to lean towards condos because the risk is so much lower. But for that to work, you need to have buyers who are willing to purchase a unit they will not close on for 3, 4 years.
Right.
And that's a challenge because what end user knows exactly where they're going to be living 3 or 4 years from now? It's a pretty rare thing. So those units were typically sold to investors. And the reason that the investors would buy them is because they expected some pretty radical price appreciation over the next couple of years.
Right.
So they would buy it expecting to make a 30 or 40% return because prices were skyrocketing. But as soon as, and we had all sorts of social problems for that because of that, and we still do. And these are problems of affordability. These are problems of what units are actually being built. Are they livable? Is there demand for them? We had this market where prices were just skyrocketing all the time, and anyone was buying anything
Yep.
because they were afraid of being priced out of the market. So as soon as we started having some weakness in that sale market, and that you wouldn't be able to lease it afterwards or sell it afterwards, those buyers started drying up. And now we don't have a whole crowd of buyers coming in and looking to buy units ahead of time. So developers are right now even sitting on all sorts of unsold units, and they're still building buildings that that whoever bought them in the past is not able to close on them. So that's the problem in the market. And then the developers now have switched back over to rentals because we as a society have noticed that we have a big problem in terms of rentals. So we have all sorts of federal and CMHC funding for developers to help them build rental. So we've seen a gigantic shift from condo development to rental development right now.
Right. So I guess the other flip side of this is so they're looking at will anybody buy these units on pre-sale to basically fund our project
Yeah.
and reduce our downside, and then there's the opportunity cost of what could I get with a rental, right? So and this is where like accountants and economists differ when they're bean counting. If I got a rental, given that rents are so high and they're going up, and the people are desperate for a place to live, is this maybe safer for me and more of a steady stream of income? And you know what? It doesn't really prevent me from turning it into a condo later if the market
Right.
flips back over. So these are the types of incentives that these builders are thinking about.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So there is very much a mathematical discussion. Where can
Yeah.
I make the best return for my money?
Right, it's interesting because you said like there are social considerations that were caused by the market prices going up, and that's always true. But I don't want to get like so. One thing we're not doing today for anybody watching is getting into moral valuation of any
Mhm.
social considerations.
Yeah.
We're talking about what are the economics effect.
That's
Like
right.
it's just a plain objective analysis we're trying to do today.
Absolutely.
And so I guess though what I'm saying is that in any direction that anything goes, there's always going to be social considerations or social effects on it.
Right.
And something that I worry about often when people are making decisions about what to legislate or how to direct the economy is that they don't consider the math in between, and then they have a surprising social effect after that, right? So,
Yeah.
okay, what kind of what kind of surprising social effects might happen, do you think, if we, and again, we're not evaluating whether it's good or bad, right? But like, well, let me flip this around. If we want to reduce the cost of housing and get people to have an easy access to places to live,
Mhm.
how can we do that given the incentive set that you just laid out and we're discussing? What would you think?
Yeah. So for a developer, if we're talking about, do you want to talk about rental or you want to talk about purchase?
Well, I don't know if you can I don't know if you can separate them so much, right? Like it's
You're right
yeah,
that there's an owner can choose to rent if they want to.
yeah,
But in a large, there is a separation there because the developer has to make a decision whether they're going to condoize it or not. It's actually quite hard to condoize after the rental's been built.
yeah,
It's also hard to get rid of a condo and turn it into a one owner rental. So it's
yeah,
actually hard to switch between the two. But if we wanted just to think about, let's reduce the costs of construction, right? If we reduce the cost of construction, whether it's a rental, whether it's a condo, those prices can come down. But the problem is that that's quite hard to do. So if we look at what are the inputs into construction, you have labor costs, you have material costs, you have site preparation costs, um, you have all sorts of costs that come along with your consultants. You have development charges that you're paying to the city.
hmm,
So each one of those is a factor, but we don't have control over all of these. So, for example, can the federal government or the provincial government, by diktat, reduce the cost of materials? No, not really. They can't say concrete's now going to be 20% cheaper. That's not how it
well,
works.
they could, but then they'd be shocked to find out that they don't have any concrete.
Yeah, well, yeah,
Like
because
that's
no one's going to provide. They could set
yeah,
a price ceiling or something like that on cubic meters of concrete or cubic yards or
yeah,
whatever. They could do that, but really, in our society with a free market, you can't really set those types of prices. So you can look at if you can't really change material costs, what do you do for labor costs? And now labor costs are something where we have a little bit of more control. And I'm not talking about minimum wage. I'm more talking about the number of tradespeople that we have. So
right,
right now, one of our challenges is that there is a shortage of tradespeople. We don't have enough framers and steel workers and concrete finishers, and we don't have enough of these trades.
right,
So this is something where the provincial and the federal government can have an impact by subsidizing education, by saying, hey, Mohawk College or in St. Lawrence College, where I'm in Kingston, or Algonquin College, hey, you can offer free tuition, we will subsidize you for it. And that might bring more tradespeople into the business. That might allow us to build more because now we can have lower costs of trades. So that's something that we can control. We can look at, can we reduce development costs? And this is something the provincial government has tried to do. But they run into issues in that these development costs are there for a reason. They're there because the city has to build infrastructure. So if you're paying a certain number of dollars per unit, and that's going to the city, they're
hmm,
not really doing nothing with it, right? They're building fire stations and police stations, and they're expanding all sorts of things that service your building. So these levers we have many levers, but they're hard to use and they're hard to be able to manipulate. And finally, the last thing you could do is you could just throw money at the problem. You can say, you know what, we're going to give $20,000 to every person who buys a condo unit, or to a developer per unit, we're going to give them $20,000 to build rental.
right.
You could do that, but again, that's a societal decision that we're making.
Yeah, because so in any the economy is not a fixed pie, but in any given slice of time,
Yeah,
it is.
that's right.
Right. So if you decide we're going to give $20,000 to anybody who wants to buy a condo,
Yep.
someone else somewhere
Where's
is
that coming?
suffering.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
Essentially.
we
Yeah.
have levers, but individually they're hard to use. So one of the levers that the federal government is using right now through the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation is to provide guarantees on loans or loans directly to developers. So they're actually providing subsidized mortgages to developers who are building. So they're saying something like this. The market rate for your type of project might be 4%. We will give you a 2% mortgage if you agree that you're going to build a rental building, or
Hmm.
if you agree that a certain number of units are going to be affordable. So they are doing that, and that helps the developer with certainty. It helps them with their financing costs and helps build their costs of construction down, which means that either more projects are going to get built or they're going to get built and be able to lease for a lower rate.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. So I think something. I guess we can agree right now. Then mostly developers are switching to rentals.
Very much so. Very
I mean, I know
absolutely.
we see that a lot in Ottawa
Yeah.
in particular, and actually some of them have been pretty highly publicized lately. These rentals. So um, if we as you and I both work in condos and have been for some
Yep.
time, the condo industry, and this is not a view I'm ascribing to you. This is something I'm I'm ascribing to myself. It shoots itself in the foot a little bit, I think, in that you might be aware of all of these amendments to the Condominium Act that were proposed 10 years ago, and
Mhm.
many of them are falling off
Right.
the
Timing out.
yeah, some of them have been preserved by the legislature for later review, and a good number of those amendments to the Condominium Act are to do with increased regulation on developers and holding developers to um, higher standards here, there, several things in it that I won't get into the ins and outs of. But I thought to myself, 10 years ago, that seems sort of sensible. And yet, right now, I actually feel like this would just cause developers who, by the way, I don't believe are evil. I think they're serving a
Yeah.
purpose that we need to
Absolutely.
have done. Well, it's just another reason for them to not build a condo, right?
Yeah.
When people need housing. And so I guess what I'm saying is there's this dichotomy here where the more perfect we try to make condo legislation for existing or condos that after they're declared and turned over,
Right.
the less attractive we make condos, not only for the builder, but also for unit owners that have to pay ultimately the overhead on like
Right.
because of the elasticity of this here. So
Yep.
the developer is able to download a lot of their costs onto homeowners because homeowners need a place to live.
Right.
Um, so anyway, I don't want to. I, don't- I know that the amendments to the act are really important thing to many people in the industry, and I understand why from their point of view. But I guess what I'm trying to highlight is when we do these sorts of changes, we must be very careful because they always have knock-on effects that we don't think about,
Right.
and that's really the greatest lesson of economics. And everything you're outlining, like you said, you've got all these levers, but unfortunately, like that lever is tied to that lever over
Yes.
there,
Yes.
and so you can't adjust one without the other one coming down.
Mhm.
And I don't know. It's something to think about when people recommend policies and creating just greater layers of regulation,
Yeah.
right? So yeah, I don't know if this is if you have any comment on that, but
You know what? It's interesting to talk about because if we increase regulation, we have better regulated condos. We have lower risks of one developer hiring their brother for triple the cost
right.
or whatever. Like we're solving some of those problems, but we are doing that at the cost of condo management fees being higher
Yep.
because now these requirements ultimately the board doesn't know what to do with them. They hire a manager to manage it for them. The manager has higher regulation, has more regulation that they need to follow. They need to hire better trained, better specialized managers,
Yep.
and those costs go down to owners. So what degree of safety, what degree of regulation do the owners want? Do you want a super regulated, super safe, super everything at a very high cost? Or do you want a borderline unregulated industry with very low costs,
Right.
but potentially much higher risks of graft and theft and all that? So that's a decision that it's a hard decision to make because every owner would answer that differently. So
Yeah.
what we vote legislators for is to come up with a decision for us of how regulated you want this.
Yeah. I mean, well, so that's certainly one way of doing it, right? And the other thing that condos could do is, and I don't think this is going to happen, but we're just having an economic
Sure, theoretically,
hypothetical
yeah,
here. Um, Before the act set out minimums for certain things condos have to do, compliance,
yeah. Mhm.
it was still available for condos to do these things,
Right.
right? And in fact, people, by definition, I mean, somebody thought the condos should do those things before the act is turned into what it is.
Mhm.
Otherwise, who wrote the
Yeah,
act,
that's right.
right? So,
Yeah.
um, and I've often thought that a more decentralized control where the condo itself decides how, because they're elected too, these boards, right, by the people who most directly know their situation. Um, More control to decide how much oversight is strictly needed. So, for example, like, do we want to pay however much it is to send out a pick
Yeah.
every 6 months, and
Right.
um, just as a low hanging fruit example. Um, so I know when the act was amended um, in 2017, well, the consultations started well prior to that. I've read the consultation papers, and the people who did those papers largely did a great job from their professional
Mhm.
standpoint, right? Like they're suggesting things totally rational for their position. But what I noticed was missing from it is there's no economist in the reports. There's no economic
Right.
analysis of like,
Yeah, no one's predicting this forward in terms of how it's going to end up with costs, what kind of follow-on effects they're going to have. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So anyway, this is going to be a really easy question. Do you think that we would benefit from more economic analysis when making these types of decisions?
yes. Well, and this is why the federal government and all sorts of national governments have onboard economists that are not tied to any political party, right?
Right.
They're called things like the Office of Fiscal Responsibility or the Office of Budget Oversight, whatever. They're always called things like that,
Yeah.
and every federal government has them, and they're nonpartisan, and they are economists who often any legislator can ask for their opinion and say, "Hey, I'm proposing this bill. Can you actually model this out for me?" So we would benefit from having more of that in the condo world or in the rental world. There more of these specialists should be involved, not just at the federal level.
Yeah. I agree. I think it. I see in the condo market just a little bit of a lack of care for the topic,
Right.
and I think it's because it's nothing malicious. Like there's nothing anybody's doing. Oh, the economists. It's just we're so used to accountants, lawyers, and engineers when it comes to condos,
Yeah.
and we need those people.
Right.
They're
Absolutely.
critical,
Yeah.
but they're not sensitive to the other profession of economics,
Yeah.
where we just don't really like. Honestly, besides you, um, and maybe a little bit of me, I don't really know anybody else in condos that regularly talks about this type of thing.
No, really, you're right.
Yeah.
Right. It's a rare thing to have someone really even a business education is sometimes rare in this industry.
Yeah.
And I think of how managers get involved in the industry, right? They're often coming from something else. Very few come from an economics or from a business background and then decide they're going to get into property management or condo management. So it's largely a no, I don't want to say largely a function of where we come from, but it's just these specialists that are asked.
Yeah.
They're just not asked. No one's asking for an economist's opinion.
Yeah, that's the exactly. And so I'm hoping though that that changes in the future.
I'd like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
And so I want to make a little a pitch here as to why it might be useful for managers, directors, lawyers, engineers, I don't care who, to start taking you know economics as something that they include in their not only their way of viewing the world, but when they're explaining to clients like why something has happened.
Yep.
I have noticed that if you bring in economic reasoning, it actually can calm people down.
Right.
Right. So,
Yeah. You're building a case. You're building a
yeah,
this because of this because of this. Right.
yeah. So for example, insurance, right? We were discussing a little bit before waivers from hard market, soft market, hard market, soft market. Do you know why that, you want to talk about price signals?
Yeah. So insurance is always a tricky topic, and there's a lot of things happening here. Which exactly one do you want to focus on?
I think what I'm trying to do is get a viewer to understand how price signals draw people into different markets and might move an underwriter,
Okay.
right, like to attract. Look, prices. We've sort of beat around this a little, right? Like a developer, they're figuring out what they want to do. They're going to look at prices of things,
Yep.
right? And then they're going to enter a certain market. And so the fluctuation of any premium that somebody's paying on insurance.
Yep.
I don't know if you want to talk about underwriters.
Sure.
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Okay. So
Yeah.
if we look at the business, if we look at insurance as an industry, they are trying to make a profit. So they are trying to balance the perils, the risks that they might have to pay, and they're trying to offset that by collecting enough insurance premium revenue. And they're trying to collect more revenue than the cost they're going to have to pay out. So if insurance costs, if your premium costs are going up, that's one of a couple of reasons. Either the risks to the entire industry have gone up, and the underwriters are saying that, you know what, this is just a much riskier business than we thought. We have to raise your premiums. Or your particular corporation has more claims, therefore, we have to be drawing more in premiums if we still want to make a profit. So the signal that you're getting as a corporation, as a board that's looking for quotes, if your condo prices are going up, that's a signal that the risk here has changed, whether it's for your corporation specifically or for corporations at large.
Yeah. So that was beautiful. That was an excellent descriptor of how these underwriters work. And then, so what would happen if prices go up in the market long enough? Would it attract a lower price eventually for the premium?
So potentially not. So if risks keep going up, and if it depends on why prices are going up.
Right.
If prices are going up because there's one insurance provider and prices keep going up and up and up and up, while like your premium prices, while your actual your costs of servicing that policy are not going up, well, then you're going to have a bigger and bigger profit. And then you will attract over time more competitors, and those prices will come back down as they try to underbid each other. Then you have prices come down. But if prices are going up because the actual riskiness of the industry goes up, they're going to keep going up, and you're not getting a bigger profit, right?
Right.
The insurer is not realizing a larger profit. So there's no real reason for prices to come down. There's no reason for more competitors to enter the market because they're not more profitable. There's that small margin. It's just climbing up as a whole.
Now, I noticed absent, and you're doing a beautiful job of explaining. I don't mean to be condescending. I could not do that better, and I've tried to explain this to boards. You're so good at this. The do you absent in your explanation is anything about anyone being evil and trying to,
Yes.
and I'm not, the reason I'm saying it is because my experience is when people are upset about a price,
Right.
the first thing I usually hear
With the evil corporation.
is that they're evil.
Ah, okay.
Not
Yeah.
that they're worried about
Yeah.
the risk or that there's a competitor or there's no competitor or there's right. And just the explanation you're giving already, I'm feeling more reasonable.
I want to talk about that. The
Sure.
concept of evil. In my view, a corporation's not evil.
Right.
It is very honest with what it's doing. It has a profit-making motive. It's not evil. It's not trying to intentionally hurt you. It's just trying to make money.
Right.
If there's a way to make money, it will. But if they make too much money, then competitors come because they also want some of that money and prices come back down. So I don't think evil is the right word to ascribe to how a business is thinking. They're not intentionally thinking of screwing you over. They're just trying to make money. And if they
Right.
can't make any money, they're just going to leave the business.
That's right. And if their product becomes so useless, like they're just trying to get money for nothing, you
Yeah.
won't buy it.
You won't buy it. Yeah.
So,
And
right,
just yeah, if I just think of this logically, if an insurance company had these outrageous profits, you and I would open up insurance company
exactly.
and we would start insuring because there's such great profits to be made. And if we wanted to win some business, we would slightly undercut what the big insurance companies are doing.
Yeah.
And in that way, competitors come to the market and keep prices down. So prices are a signal. They're that way for a reason. Now, what we have to always unpack is, are they that way because there's no competition? Or are they that way because of the fundamental costs of going into that business have increased?
Right. Yeah. No, that's beautiful. So, and I think the reason I picked insurance is just because it's such a clean way
Yeah.
of describing a rational actor in a market.
Yep.
And really what we're describing too is a trend towards market equilibrium where you
Right.
have a
Exactly.
competitive market. And but that doesn't just apply to insurance. So like this analysis is important in everything. Contractors, like you said, developers, everything, right? So, um, and something that's very near and dear to us that we wanted to talk about, which is the condo management market,
Right.
right?
Yep.
I don't know, did you want to open up that one with?
Yeah. So this is just one of my thoughts on the drive up here from Kingston this morning is that the way I see this industry moving is towards fewer but larger management companies. The reason for this is specialization and splitting up work as a result of increased legislation.
Mhm.
So if we jump this industry back 20 years, a one person or a two person, one man or two man show was possible because there was very little legislation. This is very much, here are my expenses, here's my income, make sure the income equals the expenses, and find some contractors to do the work. That was the business. There's very little mandatory regulatory compliance. As that changes and increases, now you start having one person having to be responsible for status certificates, information certificates. They're talking to owners, they're talking to vendors, they're making sure the vendors are properly insured and WSIB compliant. They are also making sure they're keeping up to date with industry developments, with legal changes. They're trying to do things from about 20 different buckets. And
Yeah.
it comes to the point where you just can't have one person having a handle on all of that. So this is when we start having specialization. As a company grows from one or two people to maybe 5 or 10, they start having specialists. They start having, this person does my status certificates, this person does my arrears, this person does my whatever. You start having specialization like that. I see that happening more as time goes on because each individual bucket of work becomes so much larger that it starts taking up one person or multiple people.
Yeah.
So the trend that I see is for a company to be viable, there's a minimum size. Now, I don't know exactly what that number is.
Sure.
You must have 2,000 units or you're not really a company. I don't want to put a number to that. But the trend I see is towards fewer but larger management companies with dedicated departments. Department of this, department of that,
Right.
department of this. That's the trend that I see.
Yeah. No, I mean, so that's interesting. And so I mean, my whole business model, which I'm allowed to go into on this podcast since it's mine, is that I wanted to test this specialization idea. I've had a career that I didn't intend, but turns out I'm good at, of running into construction defects and dealing with them and dealing with building envelopes, engineering, dealing with engineers and setting up engineered jobs, and
Yep.
so insurable losses, like these sorts of things that really bog managers down and are quite technical and often they're underappreciated for how technical they are for the manager. Um, and so far so good. I'm quite busy, and so some of the things you described, I think, are more can be seen as more administrative tasks than managerial tasks. I think it's pretty common to part them out. But even further, like for tasks that are inarguably managerial, you're providing managerial advice and oversight and work product
Yep.
that has to get specialized too.
Right.
right? And in my experience, people don't even really, well, they don't know what they don't know, and it seems easy to
Yeah.
well, I'm going to hand this to the engineer and they're going to be the one that's like, well, no, it doesn't, it's not quite that simple.
So what you do sort of
Yeah.
fits the way that I'm imagining this, because your specialty is, it's a very technical and it's a very niche, and you could be a condo manager for a career and never have the issues you're talking about.
Yes.
But over the course of any year, if you're a management company with 20 or 30 corporations, you will come up with these issues every year. So how big does a company have to be to maintain a person like you on staff just to handle these things? It has to be quite large,
Right.
because any individual corporation doesn't need you on an annual or a daily basis. So what you're describing is sort of like an in-between, where you are available for those corporations who need it.
Yes.
Those ones that don't need it don't hire you, but when they need it, they can hire you, or they can hire a management company that sort of has this internal, but that's really hard to find.
That's something, it costs, you have to carry too.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
that's the cost you are paying for
Mhm.
out of your management fees every year,
Yeah.
to have that person available to you when you need them. So this speaks the specialization and speaks to the growing sophistication of the industry.
Yeah.
And that, I would argue, is a good thing. We want this industry to be managed by specialists. And the very reason that you exist is because the issues that can come up are large and they're complex and they are expensive. Right?
Yes.
So we need people like you to be able to come in and do that work.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think that the trend to a larger management firm makes sense in a lot of ways, in insofar as like systematizing. So Ontario lends itself very well to this, because each condo really
Yeah.
has to be run sort of the same way
Yeah.
due to the legislation. Um, and so the systematizing, the sort of corporate overview of all of that actually makes a lot of sense,
Right.
because you're putting out a pretty uniform product for wherever you're going around. And then where it breaks is when something non-uniform happens,
Right.
and that systematizing is not going to help you deal with
Yep.
this situation.
Yep.
And like you said, I don't know. It sort of remains to be seen if it will turn into large corporations and doing this, which are not evil, by the way, as we discussed before,
Right.
serving a purpose, and very small vendors,
Yeah.
or
Who do one thing and they do that thing.
yes. And I think where I don't see room is the middle.
Right.
The middle is
Yeah.
in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah.
I think there's a challenge there. But here's a different challenge.
Sure.
It is now very expensive to hire a management company if you are a small corporation.
Yep.
Like, I have corporations come to us that are like 15 units, and at GPM, the largest is 900 and something units, and our smaller ones are like in the 40s.
Right.
But we just can't manage effectively those 20 or 30 unit corporations. It's extremely hard to do. So every week I have someone coming to us and say, hey, listen, would you take us on? And I say, listen, I'd love to give you a quote for this, but it's going to be so expensive that it will offend you. And I don't want to
I
offend
know.
you.
I know.
So we don't send quotes for those kind of things, and we just give them honest answers. I can't service you. And the reason that they're so expensive is not because we're evil.
No.
It's because the costs, the fixed costs of your information certificates, of having that back end to support your corporation, are equal whether you're 20 units or 200 units. So it is really hurting the little guys.
Yes.
So the smallest corporation I've come across had 4 units.
Yeah.
And
I know of
the
one that has
cost-
2.
The cost of running that is just, it's astronomical.
Yeah.
So they are the ones that are really getting screwed right now, and that they can't find a management company.
I know. There's a corporation of 6 units that the people there are lovely, and they occasionally just, I get an email bomb into my inbox. Something's happened, right? I don't mind at all. I like helping them, and the way I've handled this is I leave a management contract open ended on them.
Okay.
It's registered with the
Okay.
CAO and
Yeah.
the CMRAO, and then when they need me for something little, they can call me. But otherwise, I leave them.
Yeah.
And then what I've done before too is just, here's an operating manual. Okay.
Yeah.
Try to follow this.
Yeah.
And when something goes wrong, you can call me. And now you're not carrying a manager every
Right.
month,
Yeah. So
right? So
you're hiring them on an hourly basis as you need to
yeah,
help you out with certain things, and that's something that like
uh,
you can offer. But just like for a company
you
of a
can only do that if you're small.
yes,
Yeah,
you can't you can't run 200 corporations
no,
and have 30 of these little guys
it would
because
make no sense.
and you can't even keep track of them just by my putting my business's name as the manager of that corporation. I'm already incurring a degree of liability
Yeah.
because if something goes wrong there, who are you going to sue? The management company.
So you have to, yeah, you have to handle that in your management agreement,
Yeah,
what you're actually managing,
absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
So, but yes, there is that concern, and it's not worth. So a company that does day to day, like they're doing it well, the operational stuff for condos in Ontario, all the
yeah,
bookkeeping and whatever, it's not really worth their time to stop and think about how to limit that liability either, because it's very cookie cutter sort of like,
right.
it's a risk. Even if you want to and you feel bad for them, it might make an unfair risk to you to
Right.
stop to do that.
Yep.
So yeah, like and again, all we're talking about are rational incentives here,
Yep.
right? Like that's what's driving everything.
Just my incentive is that I
Yeah,
can't make a profit servicing a 10-unit
yeah,
corporation. I
yeah,
just can't.
exactly. So, um, something interesting about management fees that I think if some directors were here, I'd probably get one of these statues thrown at my head. In my experience, and obviously I'm biased since I do condo management is one of the things I do for work. They're astonishingly low a lot of the time for what boards get.
Right.
You're getting a bookkeeper. I mean, look, if I go hire a bookkeeper for my business right now, it's going to be more expensive than your condo bookkeeper.
Yeah.
I know it. You're getting a bookkeeper. You're getting a manager. You're getting access to whatever vendor like relationships that
Hmm.
management company has,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And the 30 or 40,000 or whatever it is, depending on the size of your condo, which is a strange metric anyway to price management
Yeah.
fees.
For Doria, it's a weird thing. It is.
It's a very strange tradition that we keep up. Um, the value is incredible compared to, like, if you called McKinsey and said, "Hey, I need you to
Right.
manage my,"
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So you're right. And this, in some of the consulting work that I've done, I've looked at businesses buying other condo management businesses.
yeah,
And owners are shocked to realize that a large degree of these businesses are functionally not profitable.
I know.
If you're getting a 10% margin on your business, like a net margin at the end of the day,
Yeah.
you are doing fantastic.
You're knocking it out of the park as a
Good
management
for
company.
you.
That's incredible.
And
Yeah.
so I've bought about 7 businesses and consulted on the acquisition of some more. And when I look at these businesses, I'm coming back to my client. I'm saying, this business is not profitable. It's hard to buy. It's not profitable. Like, what do you mean?
It's got 60 properties, 70
Yeah,
properties, 100 property.
and they have a
Yeah.
profit of 60,000 here. And I say, no, no, no. The owner's doing 2 or 3 jobs.
Yeah.
If you're working 80-hour weeks, you can't hire someone to work an 80-hour week. That's 2 40-hour week jobs.
Yeah.
Which means some of that $80,000 profit now goes towards hiring a new manager, and you have functionally no profit. So it's one of the challenges that owners think we have these outrageous management fees, but the owners of these management businesses are often not making a profit once they count the actual amount of hours that they are working.
Yeah. So this is something I struggle with on the basis of rational decision making. I kind of wonder what goes through the heads of management company owners. I know that some, and I'm like some like a lot of them are very brilliant people, and
Yeah.
boy, do they ever vary in their interests and personalities and
Right.
and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. But I mean, when they're pricing something, I don't mean to be disrespectful with what goes through their heads. I literally mean, like, what is the rational model that causes this output of low margins in this industry? Sometimes I do think it's just like you said, they just never stop to do the math correctly, and incorporate opportunity cost into
Yeah.
what they're doing. Sometimes I've noticed it's just momentum. And so, for example, like when I'm talking about my services to some condo management companies, they go, well, but we already, like we already handle doing a whatever large project here and there and whatever. And well, do you charge more for it? No,
Was it-
we don't charge.
yeah.
Why don't you charge more for it? Well, because somebody else will do it for free. So we just do it for free.
Yep.
And then it's like, okay, but are you fulfilling your main contract at this point? No, because this contract, this portion of this job has taken up so many hours.
That's right.
Now I didn't get this and this done.
Yeah.
And
this is where you have that problem of like the middle-sized manager, where you're just management company, where you're just struggling to stay alive, and you're taking things on and you're not getting paid for them. The larger companies have solved this problem by just not taking on things that are not profitable.
yeah,
And it's for the middle level, middle size, to fight each other over. And the smaller companies are just picking one or two contracts here and there that they want to work. But a lot of these management companies have no particular model that they're using to evaluate the profitability of a particular client.
right.
So how are you doing it? Are you counting it on an hourly basis and hours to serve that contract compared to the hourly cost of your manager and the hourly cost of your back-end support? How are you modeling that? Are you saying, or is it a fixed percentage of my contract has to go towards my back end? Like what is your theory of how you are looking at the profitability of your management company? And a lot of these like mid-sized players, let's talk about like 10,000 units or 5,000 units or below, are just not really thinking that way. They're just thinking more contracts equals better.
Yeah, yeah, and meanwhile, it's kind of in a way sad because some of these owners are highly dedicated, very like I don't know, motivated, very brilliant people, and they're working all year like crazy and getting not as much money as if they had just gotten a job at like
Right.
Royal Bank.
And this is the difference
You know?
between do you have a job or do you have a company? A
Right.
company can work without you. A job cannot work without you.
Right.
So a lot of times when I'm valuing a company, I'm saying this owner doesn't own a company, they own a job. It's a job that they're actually working for very little money
Right.
with a lot of hours. So it's a very weird thing that we're seeing in our industry right now, is that you just, and part of the challenge here is that the barriers to entry to starting up a condo management business are quite low. You need a license, and
You need a license, yeah.
you need
Well, they're higher than they used to be then.
okay, you're right. They're trending higher than they used to be.
Yeah.
You need a GL,
Yeah.
and you probably should incorporate. And then that's kind of it, right? You get some insurance for your business.
Yeah.
You get a name for your business. You put up a website, and you can start a business. But that doesn't mean that you're going to be a good business. That doesn't mean you're going to be a profitable business. But you, in your first couple of years, will be just throwing all sorts of low numbers at the industry to try to win some contracts.
Yep.
And then a couple of years are going to go by and you're going to fold because you're not profitable, or you're going to figure out that you actually have to start bidding higher. You're going to win fewer contracts, but they might actually be profitable.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. No, that's exactly right. And I think it's some firms have also done this. They go, well, you know what? Maybe we don't care about our management services. Like we're going to do what we're supposed to do, and we're going to, but maybe we're going to make our money like insofar as care on
I know
contracts.
Yeah.
We're going to do work for these.
Right.
And you know what? As long as everybody knows that's happening, there's nothing really wrong with that.
Yeah.
But it does make me sad from, let's say, an artist's point of view, in that I think condo management is actually it's a real thing. You should care.
Right.
Like it should be primary.
Yeah.
In a number of ways.
But let's go back to that model for a second.
Sure.
You could say, if my costs of servicing a corporation are $20 per door, if I want to make a profit, I have to charge $25 a door. But if I only charge $20 a door and make no profit, why would I be in this business? And the reason you're in this business is because you go to the corporation and tell them, I will offer you a very low price for your management contract, but you have to agree to use me for your repairs and maintenance.
Right.
And that's where you make your profit. And that, if you are being very honest and disclosing this, that's above board.
Oh yeah, I agree.
It's
totally fine.
You're explaining to everyone what you're doing.
Yeah.
But for the corporation to look at this, you're not making any, you're not saving any money. You're just paying it. It's a different flavor of where you're paying.
Yes.
So that's one model of doing it, where now you charge more for these repairs and maintenance. But that becomes an issue then is your manager calling for way too many repairs and maintenance tasks? Are they over maintaining the corporation because there's
Yeah.
a profit on everything, right? So it's the incentives change, but there's still a profit making motive there.
Yeah, for sure. I also think though it's just it's hard for me to sit here and say I think we need specialization, and it's a good idea also to really be a construction company with a management
Right.
wing to it because, but well, put it this way, like I agree. There's not. It's not about if anything's unethical or anything like that.
Yep.
It's just
It
a
could be
matter of
both ways.
again rational incentives. If you were a lawyer who handled construction defects,
Yep.
would you not? If I said, you know what, I'm going to do your construction defect litigation for you, and I'm going to do it instead of the 500, 400 that I charge, I'm going to charge you 250.
Yep.
But you know what? I happen to own this construction company here, and it's going to have to go and
Yeah,
and
yeah.
you're going to have to hire me to do that too, and you know, just package. Already, it sort of seems like a bad idea. It feels like it more than
Yeah.
with a manager,
Right.
and I don't know why.
Interesting.
I don't know why intuitively because it's still this.
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's still fundamentally the same thing.
Yeah.
Maybe because the property manager and the repairs and maintenance are seen as being like closer together as a family. Like if my doctor also offered to fix my car, I'd be like, dude, no, that's not.
Well, okay. Well, and I'm not sure that they are close. Like I think that might have been more true before, for the average man. But
They've separated to the point where they are very much different.
Yeah, like managed condo management is its own thing. But let's fix up my analogy then and use an engineer instead,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
We're gonna reduce our engineering fees,
Yeah.
but we're gonna fix this. And I know there are some construction companies that sort of do that, but usually they're branded as a construction company,
Yeah.
not an
Featuring some engineering service.
Yeah, exactly. Like we have an engineer in house that we, but then I feel like it's almost I don't want to be pretentious to say this, but as an artist, almost it's like, but you're under like it just feels like you're denigrating the art of doing that profession.
Yeah.
By
It's weird. I don't like it.
Yeah.
I would much rather that every one of my, if I'm thinking as the board, at each one of my service providers,
right,
doesn't offer one thing for cheap to get another one in. It just makes it more transparent to me if each one provides one thing. So I'm always a little leery of these bundled services.
Yeah.
Because I can't figure out what is market price and where I'm getting screwed for price and by how much.
right.
So I just, it's easier for me to pull them apart. But in another way, sometimes bundling does make sense. So for example, you can unbundle, you can have one snow clearing service provider. You can have one landscaper.
Yeah.
You can have two different ones.
Sure.
But often it makes sense to lump those because they are on two completely opposite seasons. They use the same kind of skills and the same kind of equipment.
Yeah.
So often you have someone who will do your snow clearing and then your groundskeeping. So in those cases, it makes sense to bundle them, but just it's actually cheaper from an economics point of view to have, just from an operations point of view, to have one company that does both and has an equal amount of work.
Well, and they have the knowledge of that landscape
that
and
site, and
yeah,
the equipment can be amortized over a full 12 months and
That's right.
of the year. So in that case, sometimes there are certain services that you can bundle. You can make the claim that cleaning and repairs can be bundled too, because the cleaner can maybe, as they're cleaning, do the very small odd jobs that you don't have to roll a truck to go fix, and they can find them on an everyday basis and report them. So like there are some things that can be logically bundled, and there are some things like my doctor/mechanic that are very weird because they're very different skill sets that don't have synergies of overlapping. So if you are looking at bundled services, which ones, where, why, and how, and they have to some sort of have some complementarity to it, where I'm able to get a lower joint price than two separated prices.
I think so. I think this is basically then, I think you're confirming in a much more eloquent way what my feeling is on it, which is that some people still see condo management as like you're our site administrator that is just making sure the cleaner is doing their job.
Yeah.
And then I don't see condo management like that at all. I see it as its own profession in its own right if it's being done correctly.
Right.
And that there is no overlap between the legal business and like, sort of logical faculty I expect of a condo manager and a construction company.
Right.
I don't see how they're related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are different skill sets.
Yeah.
The manager's job, but up against
Yeah.
the repairs and maintenance company, and they have a very small overlap in that I need to know which contract I need, when, where, and why, but don't ask me to patch a drywall hole because I will not do a good job. Right. So
Right.
there's where do they butt up? Where do they overlap? Where is there a synergy? So you can find some synergies in certain things, but I'm wary if someone's requesting that I bundle two services, but I don't see a logical argument for why this is cheaper for me overall.
Right. Yeah. We've got 5 minutes before we have to leave this studio. Is there anything else you wanted to touch real quick?
We've been everywhere today.
We've covered a lot of ground.
Yeah.
What about I think, I mean, I'll make one little quick appeal, and then
Okay.
whatever you're
Hit me with it.
okay. Well, my quick appeal is just that people take into consideration just some of the factors we're talking about. We talked about price signaling, right? So like, what will people do in response to this price? And when I see a price I don't like, why does this price exist? It's often helpful to understand, right? And it helps you to predict really what you need to do and plan for. We've talked about elasticity, right? Like, just remember, if you're going to suggest a policy, if you're going to suggest anything, remember who can download the price onto whom.
Who is paying it at the end of the day?
At the end of the day, right? So, and just like intuitively, the classic example is like life-saving drugs.
Yeah.
100% of that price can be downloaded or very close to it onto the consumer,
right.
Whereas Ferraris, not so much, right? Like, it's a luxury item that, but housing, we're in a market where we're dealing with housing. Housing is not, I mean, it can be a luxury good, but at the end of the day, you need shelter or you will die.
Right.
So people, there's a lot of inelastic downloading that goes on. And so think about the levers when we're making decisions. If I pull this one, what's going to happen with the other one?
The interconnectedness of the levers.
And if you think you're rational, which you probably mostly are, because most people have to.
Most people mostly are,
yeah. No one perfectly. Maybe give the other party that benefit of a doubt too,
right.
That they're also most of the time going to be rational and not trying to upset you. And then the last thing I have to say before I turn over to you for the final words is don't devalue management services, especially if you're a management service provider.
Right.
If
don't underbid yourself.
Don't underbid yourself. There's no point. You'll be working for nothing.
Yep.
You're also damaging, like, you don't see lawyers racing to the bottom. They could, but they don't really. There is so much work out there. It makes no sense, except that people haven't done the type of analysis we're talking about.
Right.
It makes no sense to race to the bottom.
Okay. I agree. Yeah.
What do you got for me?
Okay. Real estate management education. We need more of it. The courses that you're coming out of with your CMRO 4 or 5 or 6 courses, that is like the very legal minimum so you can say that you're a manager. That is by far not enough. There's so much more that's required in terms of business education, economics education, reading contracts, understanding how, understanding economics, understanding incentives, understanding profit motive, understanding supply and demand. There's so much more that's required in management education that we can't stop it at the number of courses we have now. This needs to be built out and in a more robust way we need more. Let's just summarize that. We need more management education.
We do. And I think the best way to do that is don't devalue.
Right. Yeah. Underbidding.
Stop underbidding so that you can afford to pay a person who has that education, right?
Absolutely.
Anyway.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. And this was wonderful. I would love to do this again.
Pleasure.
And I hope everybody goes to, how can we find you?
Find me?
Yeah. Not physically.
Yeah, on LinkedIn, Michael Trendota. It's a good place to find me.
LinkedIn. Okay.
Yeah, LinkedIn's the best place.
It's useful for that.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks.